All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting of the Isani City, of the Committee of the Whole to order. If we all can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Turn that back on. Any public comment this evening? We'll go ahead and move into our first business item, which was E1, the agenda request from Julia Overson. And we now have a full board here with Jeff Holmgren joining us at 5:01.
We did have a agenda request come in from Julia Overson. Her request is a check was mistakenly placed in the mail with no address and was given to the city of Isani. She immediately placed a stop payment on said check because she thought it was lost. She resubmitted a check to the city to replace the check and placed a stop payment on it. And then Mike can answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, so, once she puts a stop payment on it, then it's a return check, and in our fee schedule, return checks are $30. And
I'm still trying to figure out how the check got it here, if there was no address on the envelope and,
apparently it just said City of Isani, and that was it.
oh, okay. And they
And
still brought it. Gotcha.
And she says, well, my husband grabbed it all, threw it all in the mail. There was no postage, no nothing. And she assumed that it wouldn't make it to us, and it did. And
It's fair
once
to
it-
assume that it wouldn't make it to us.
And
It is.
we got it, and we applied it as you would, and of course it got returned.
Yeah.
So
That'll
then
save me a lot of money on postage, though, going forward. I guess if that's the case, I mean, that makes sense to why she would have stopped it, because she would have assumed that would not get delivered, right? So,
That's the smart thing to do, stop it, yeah.
yeah, so I
And-
wouldn't,
And we did deposit that and get charged a fee, or tried to, and
Yeah, the money went in, money came back out, yep.
did we get charged a fee for that?
Our banking services agreement has no fees.
Okay, well, then I think we should waive it in this case.
I
If it wasn't costing taxpayers money, then.
yeah, I'd be okay with that. I mean, she wasn't trying to do that, you know, and I can understand how she could,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just told her, I said, that's what's in the fee schedule, that's council direction. I can't undo that.
yeah.
You gotta
it's
talk
not-
to council.
Yeah,
So-
you're not the one that can make the decision, but
So-
what do you guys think?
But she did make her account whole though, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess I'd waive it.
Yep.
yeah, she's otherwise a timely payer. It's not like she's 6 months behind or something. She's,
I have no problem with waiving that $30 fee.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to E2, County Road 5 pothole maintenance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So staff, Mr. Sylvester and myself had met with Justin Bergerson, the county engineer, as well as Joel Schleicher, the maintenance superintendent for the county, to discuss the recent pothole patching work that was done on CASA 5 Heritage Boulevard along through city here. And the first thing that they did is they did apologize for the workmanship that had been done. That is standard kind of bulk patching that they do out in rural areas, and they do feel and express that they felt that there could have been better discretion made for doing hot patching within the city limits, and that they would correct that in the future years or future patchings that they do. So they wanted us to be aware that they could have put a tender behind, and they could also rolled it down, so that would have minimized the deflection that was happening with those rocks, throwing them around, hitting vehicles, as well as throwing it up on the sidewalk. I had shared with him that that was the first time that I've never known in my experience here that I've had to have Public Works go blow off the sidewalk due to county hot patching work. So that is how the initial meeting started. And then we did engage in a conversation on whether Public Works was able to take on the summer maintenance, what would that look like? They did share with me, or with us, that they do have an agreement with the city of Cambridge for one road within city limits there, that they have for all maintenance, not just summer hot patching work, but all maintenance for, including plowing. He said that there is a possibility the city could take that on with their commissioner board approval. We'd have to look at what kind of costs would be involved. They had stated it's something that maybe if we're just doing summer maintenance, that they could reimburse us for some of that hot patch material, but then there'd have to be a further discussion with the commissioning board of how they would pay for staff's time. And there would also need to be a conversation agreement drafted of when it was warranted versus not, kind of alluding to say, well, what if the city does more than they would have done? Should they pay for that? So that would have to be done at a board level. Beyond that, Mr. Sylvester should also chime in on whether they have the time to take this on and kind of the expectation if we were to move forward and beyond with this topic.
You basically have to do all the work anyway, don't you?
I honestly don't think that Public Works can take on Carnarwood 5. I
No?
really don't. We're a small staff that does everything from water, wastewater, all the way through. I don't think we have the time or the resources really to take on that stretch of road.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's more of a, if it's really, really bad, you gotta get out there and, you know, sort of make ends meet for a short period of time, right? But
This
yeah,
winter-
if you had to do the whole thing on a consistent basis, that would be too much, I think, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this winter wasn't so bad with potholes. The year
Yeah,
prior
yeah,
was
last-
terrible.
yeah.
And we have another year like that, and then to have to take on Carnarwood 5 again, it's not a one pass-through thing. It's one pass, come back, another pass, come back, and a third pass, you know, and to take care of everything else at the same time. I just don't think we have the time for it.
So Matt, my question would be, if you were to take it on, you would end up having to hire more staff.
I believe I would need more help, absolutely.
Are you talking 2 people, what?
Well, generally, when we go out and hot patch, it's generally 3 people. They go out and patch.
But then what about plowing?
There you go. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, we don't, it's, what's gonna take precedence is gonna be the plowing, and then if you have something happen at the water plant or the wastewater plant, now we're there, you know.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is if you were, what's it gonna cost our taxpayers if we were to do it? And is the county gonna be willing to make us whole for that? I mean, if you have to hire 2 people at your current, you know, pay scale, you know, we're not talking $20,000, you know? I mean, if you had to hire 3 people, on an average, you're probably looking at probably close to $200,000, if not, and then not buying, you know, not including any equipment, bare minimum, you know, and if the county isn't going to make us whole on that, it's not worth us, in my opinion, for us to take it on.
Yeah, I can't continue to see County Road 5 taken care of the way it is. It's not good for our residents, so we have to do something, whether this maybe isn't the option, maybe we can call them and say, hey, you guys need to get out here and fix this. Maybe we just need to be more stern with that. I guess I don't know, because there's a lot of complaints about it. That road is horrible. It needs a repave now, but they're not gonna do it. So, I mean, it's kinda like a back burner for them, but it's a main thing for us, so.
Just to add to that, when we have had complaints come through and I call the county and let them know, hey, you got a big pothole here, 'cause people are calling the city, they've been pretty responsive going out there taking care of some of them big ones, you know, when they have taken place. Now, I don't always hear about them or see them until after the fact, start getting calls, start coming in,
Right.
it's okay, wait a minute, we gotta get a hold of the county, but they have been responsive and coming out there and doing something.
I mean, could we send them a bill for street sweeping? Since we just said we had to do it, we already ate the cost, but, I mean, you gotta make them actually feel it, so maybe they're a little more mindful of it. Hit them in the pocketbook, that's the only thing that really works. Because they can say all these things, but I don't think they're gonna change anything.
I think that's possible to have a conversation about street sweeping because of the workmanship of the hot patching.
Right.
But they're gonna say that the reason why to street sweep that street is for our storm sewer.
Well, yeah.
And then
So we own the storm, that's another thing, we own the storm sewer, so they could just do whatever, they could come and dump hot tar down our storm sewer and they wouldn't care. It's not theirs.
Well, why don't we just, let's just start with this. Why don't we talk to them, see what they would estimate they're spending every year for the summer maintenance, I guess you could say, on that stretch of road? And then, you know, and include labor in that and that type of thing as well. And, I mean, maybe we can hire another seasonal guy that's, you know, would be able to come out and help with that, or,
I think that's a
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Sylvester, was that the $1,800 that they threw out? Do you recall? I had written down 1,800. Was
That sounds
this
familiar.
stretch?
Yeah,
Because I think they pay, I don't want to speak for them, was it $74 a ton? And how many tons they put down? I think it was about 1,800.
it sounds about right. I know, yeah, they haul 4 ton at a time. You know, they go to Elk River and get their mix.
The material is pennies though compared to the labor is what always gets you on this stuff. The material is pennies. So,
are you talking
That's just for
1,800,
hot
just,
patch.
just the hot patch material?
I believe it was material.
yeah, and that's not even scratching the surface
Yeah.
of what it actually costs. Do you think they know how many times they go out to that road? Do they track that type of stuff so they can like say, hey, we go out to this, maybe they're going out there more than we realize, but I think they're not, I guess, I don't know.
I know that I've seen them out there 3 times this year, I think, and a lot of times it's one lane one day, the other way the next day, they only go the opposite direction. So I would say 3 times.
Okay.
They did say that that is the busiest stretch of road in Isani County,
It
too.
is. But they don't take very good care of it. It's kind of mind-boggling. So how do we fix it? That's where we're at now, and that's why I keep bringing this one up. I think it'd be good to get numbers from them, actual numbers, not that $1,800 garbage they threw at you. That's,
I mean, the problem, I guess, even like you said, with hiring seasonals, is some years it's not that bad, and some years it's horrible, right? And so
Every
it's-
year is different.
Yeah.
Every year is different. This year was pretty nice when it came to potholes. This year, they weren't that bad, but the year before, they were bad.
Yeah, that one by the tracks was
Yeah.
absolutely massive.
Yep.
Well, I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you wanna ask more questions and get more info, and, or do you wanna maybe just call it good, and we'll just try to hold them more accountable, or?
I don't think I'm gonna be okay just calling it good on this, personally, without getting more information, because that $1,800, that's not even a remote number. You know, it's probably north of 50,000, I would think, with labor and stuff for all that stuff every year, but Jason, do you know how much an average upkeep of a road like that it would be? I mean, no idea, in the condition it's in?
No, I mean, if we're only talking the topic of patching and they take their one pass or whatever that they do, you know, and that's all that the effort they put in, and it's part of this massive bulk quantity that they're doing on all the other roads, you know, aside from the, you know, the labor side of things, when they don't do much traffic control, they don't do much compacting, they just kind of fill it in and roll, you know, I couldn't guess, but, you know, it would appear they're keeping those prices down pretty good, if that's all they're doing. You know, whether we would, you know, do it more thoroughly, you know, I would guess that it would cost significantly more to do it well.
To do it right, that's my question.
Yeah,
You know, what are they doing versus what's it cost to do it right?
so, yeah, I wouldn't really have a number for that, just
Okay.
because it just totally depends on the specific road and how bad the potholes are, how many patches, you know, all that.
Well, why don't we just say this, if you guys are okay with it, let's find out, you know, for sure what the number is for material and labor that they're using now. And then let's, if we could get a copy of that agreement that they have with Cambridge, so we can kind of look at that as an example of maybe something that they are doing now.
I
And then
do have that. I
you
can
do
send
have
that out
that?
to council.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah, maybe you can send that out, and then, next committee of the whole, we could take a deeper look into that, so. That sound all right with you guys? Yep. Okay, because I agree with you, it is a problem, and that's probably the majority of the complaints that I get are potholes on 5.
Somewhere on
you
that
know,
road,
I mean,
there's
yeah.
something on that road.
Yep, so, okay, well, yeah, let's move on to E3, speed limit and sidewalk on Whiskey Road discussion. So a lot of you guys, I'm sure, are aware that we had a real bad accident in the corner of Whiskey and South Passage here last week, and we had a lot of folks on social media were talking about this and wanting to see something done, and you know, the sidewalk discussion was, of course, kind of a part of that, and the speed limit, and a lot of things that I know we've talked about. I mean, Steve, I mean, I don't know how long this has been something that's been talked about, but probably, I would guess, almost the entire time you've probably been on council, right?
This
So,
is Steve's favorite subject, the sidewalks, for
That
sure.
sidewalk
Yeah.
has been, the 14 years that I've been on this council, I've been trying to get that sidewalk completed.
yeah,
It's a mess over there with the layout and everything. It needs to be done.
yeah.
But, there again, you got properties that they do not want it done on. Right. And what do you do to get that property to do it? And I, for one, am not gonna be that person. I've had that discussion more than once.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if we could reach an agreement with him, but many years ago, that bridge was burnt. Many years ago, not just 4, 5, 6 years ago.
What kind of speeds were involved in that accident the other day?
I mean, I don't think we know that information necessarily. I mean, it's, you know, but I mean, but we've always, just speaking generally about it, I mean, we've always, you know, I know we've talked about a few different things, but, you know, with this, but I guess to kind of go back and ask some questions about it that, you know, because I think the last time we talked about it was maybe 6 months ago, something like that. I feel like it's been somewhat recent, and we asked some questions, and I was just trying to remember kind of what the answer was to that, and if we were, you know, doing anything to follow up on it and that kind of thing, so.
As far as sidewalks,
Well, my number one question was, you know, is the county able to lower that speed limit there? And I know that we've talked about that before, and Jason, I think you maybe had an answer on it.
just extend the 30 maybe to the curve point, you mean? or-
Yeah, right.
But the problem is, and this is all prior to you three being here, it has been discussed. I, for one, I don't drive over 30, and I turn on South Passage. I don't drive over 30 to there, even though I can legitimately go 55. If we were to change that, we have to get a study on it. And the problem is, that study may say that the rest of the roads can be increased to 55 all the way in through town.
I don't know if I believe that,
Well,
though,
we,
because
we can't change the speed limit because it's a county road, but that's what I was at, is the county able to change it?
So I did reach out to the county engineer, just to feel them out on where they sit, what their stance is, and whether they would even be open to the city performing a study or whatever, just to see what would come out of it. And he replied specifically with that MnDOT are the only authority that can do the speed study. So the county would have to work with MnDOT to have the speed study even done. And then they would have to base it on that 85th percentile of the speeds. And essentially, I think everybody's impression is it's highly unlikely to reduce it, if not, you know, just verify its current speeds. The current design, you know, with the spacing of the intersections and no driveways, you know, of any significance through there, already would warrant it being able to be the 55. So the only thing that would be found is that oddly, people are driving slower than would be expected, would be the only way that speed study would somehow have it result in a lowered speed. And that's really the only way that that would be able to get lowered. So,
Can we take that back a step? So you're saying that even in city limits, we're required to have a 55 mile per hour speed limit? I didn't know you could even have speed limits that high in city limits,
so it's, because it's county road for one.
but it's in the city limits.
Well, and I take that back, it's not because of the county road or a city limit, it's the design of the road and the spacing of intersections define what type of road it is, and then the speed that goes with it. That's just how road design and speed limits are created.
Doesn't have anything to do with population density in the surrounding area. I mean, that seems kind of silly if you have 1,000 houses streaming into one point, which is basically what South Passage is. It's huge intersection.
Right, so it factors in, you know, the amount of traffic using the road.
Okay.
And it uses the distance between intersections, and whether it's rural or urban, lane widths, shoulder widths, clear zones, but it's all designed to meet all that, and so it already is set up appropriately for what it's, you know.
Appropriately
55.
based on when it was built 20, 30, 50 years ago. Because
Yeah,
now
I
I think
don't
if you
mean
did
currently,
yeah,
yeah.
if you did a study on it, I think you'd totally find that that's a metropolis road. I mean, there's so much traffic there. There's,
Well, they get the traffic counts every other year, you know, that's all logged. We know exactly what
Okay.
those numbers are, but it still meets all the criteria. for.
I guess I'm just skeptical, because we've been told, you do traffic studies and you get the speed limit up, but now, last month or 2 months ago, whenever it was, now we were told we could do 25 on residential streets. So whenever I hear that saying, I just think that's just somebody kicking the can down the road because they don't want to talk about it now. So I don't know if there's got to be something that we can do there as a city, because I don't want to keep seeing accidents there. It's such a highly traveled road. I mean, I think all of us are on the road all the time. I know me, Steve, Jeff probably is quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of traffic there. So to say that the state or the county is going to say we can't do something there doesn't sound fair to me, so.
Is there a state statute that states that cities don't have control of roads within their boundaries?
Well, that the
We're
county
super-
has the control over their county roads, yes.
So we could change it on the county level and then have control over our speed limit on that road?
So, like if you're saying to take over the road and make it a city
Well,
street?
if they have language, okay. It's within the city, it's a county road. Now, if we can't change the speed limit, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, where's the state statute that says that? If there is not a state statute or a
There
deed,
is.
there is?
Yeah, it's the county's road. It's,
Can somebody dig that up for us and so we can see more clarity to it? I like to see facts. And if that's not the case, then
no, that's
it
for
has to be
sure.
in county language.
Yeah, no, it's for sure a state statute on county's right-of-way, county's jurisdiction. So, we can, yeah, get you your information.
So how does St. Paul, Minneapolis able to dictate the speed limits within their cities?
Well, that actually is the exact kind of reference there. The city blocks are only the 300-foot long, the traffic loading is so high, the density, the not shoulders, the not rural, the curbed, you know, those criteria make the design of those roads through there only meet those, you know, lower speeds as it is. And they do have to work with the state or county to, you know, do anything with those, but they're already not meeting the criteria. And that's how you can apply it. You do the speed study that shows, yep, this isn't meeting those design criteria, this meets that design criteria, so we can post it that way.
Do we know when they would, if we did a speed study, like, can we time it and have Travis sitting out there with a couple of guys and,
Right?
you know, put our blinking sign out or something like that? And probably
well-
not, I wouldn't think, huh?
Well, and I think part of that is why the county is saying that the county would have to work with MinDOT to do the speed study, you know, to have total control over the timing of the when, and, you know, they lay it out to collect it at peak times and, you know, try and get those things for traffic counts.
And then they
But
kinda
the
go
rest
off
of that
you said
study is those.
85% of whatever the average speed is, or,
Right, yep.
yeah, whatever 85% is, yeah.
Are we allowed to put the speed signs on that street, Travis? If we were to put just so we could get a baseline number of, you know, what's traffic actually going in that area? Maybe they're only going 35 on average.
It's just like on the highway, it'd be the county engineer would, I'm assuming, have to approve that. I mean, we
Right.
couldn't
But
do
it could be
ourselves.
possible, though,
I thought we
potentially.
had done that, did we not?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Because then we could, you know, we could compare that with some of our other data and see if they're treating that as more of a county road. I mean, I go slow through that area. Steve said he goes slow through that area. It's not 30, it's probably 35 or 40, but even the 85th percentile, if we can knock it down from is it 55 now or 45?
Well, and I think, so, and that sign
It
does
says
collect
N30, but it doesn't
data,
say,
right, as far as speed, so, yeah, that's not a good,
When it
that's
says
not a bad
N30,
idea.
it doesn't say, but
I think it's
the
55.
whole problem is that corner you're coming through there
Yeah.
is 45 miles an hour.
So you
So when
speed
you
up to
come
slow
out of
down.
that second corner, you're gonna go approximately 3 blocks, you can drive 55, then you gotta get down to 30. If a street is not posted, it's legally 55 miles an hour. So, I don't disagree, trust me, I don't disagree. I think as soon as you hit state limits, it should be 30 miles an hour, if not less. I don't disagree with that, but I don't wanna put us in jeopardize, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, all the way down, it can be increased all the way down. I don't wanna jeopardize that portion of it.
Well, it can't be because the density of the roads, entrances
No,
wouldn't allow it
it's
to be.
also designed how the road is designed. There's no curb and gutter along Whiskey Road all the way. That changes the outlook on that. It's just what Jason just said.
How did it become 30 in the first place? Do you know?
I have no,
I don't know.
You know why it's called Whiskey Road?
Well, because it's been there a long time, I
No.
know that.
You know why it's called Whiskey Road? Because
Yeah, right.
Bethel, as I see, any county was a dry county. So everybody
Right.
took that, even back in horse and buggy day, to go to Bethel to drink. That's why it's called Whiskey Road.
But has it always been 30? That's more of the,
Yeah, come on up, Kim. If you could just state your name and address for the record here, and
Kim Martin, 105 Fifth Avenue Southwest. When was the last time they did a study?
There
I
may
don't-
never have been one.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you? And
Well,
putting
that's
aside
what
the
he's saying
swing-
is that if you did a study and it was, the results were that the speed potentially could go up higher,
it puts you at jeopardy for them
That's
to raise the
gamble.
speed limit.
you're right.
So do nothing?
Because they have to
Is that-
abide whatever the
Well-
85 percentile of.
Because,
Yeah,
Trying to figure every angle out before,
I hear you.
before we make a choice.
So, and then you were talking about sidewalks. Would putting curbs and sidewalks there change that? I'm assuming South Passage, I mean, I'm kind of new to the area here, looks pretty new. And so I don't know how long that road, like,
30,
That-
at least 30 years,
is it?
yeah.
So that population hasn't changed much?
Oh, the population has changed over there, probably, what, 15, within the last 15 years,
Yeah,
it's
but
changed
some- but
substantially.
South Passage is city,
Right,
but Whiskey Road is county.
correct.
And we're discussing
But what I'm saying
Whiskey
is
Road.
the dynamic of that neighborhood has changed,
Correct.
correct? Which may change what it can be called, I guess.
That's what my
That- I'm
question was
Understanding it.
for Jason, my question was, you said we do traffic study every 2 years, or just a traffic count every 2 years, and maybe you could go with that. I don't know, I just feel like there's more that we can do other than just saying, oh, let's do a speed study, because that puts us at risk.
And
There's
does
gotta be a
putting-
loophole.
Sidewalks and curbs there change that?
So there's another topic that's not speed, it's traffic calming. So ways to make people want to drive slower without making it less safe. And so there's things like doing those like bump outs, like, no, not a speed bump for the car, but for the crosswalk locations to have like the actual like ped ramps pushed out so it feels tighter at the point that the person's crossing, so they cross a shorter distance. And the vehicle coming along sees a tighter, narrower thing, and that may get them to want to slow down. It's not as an open of a corridor. And then there's the push button crossings, maybe even going the reverse way of putting even an island in the middle for getting vehicles to see obstructions and want to slow down to figure out how to navigate them. So that's a traffic calming evaluation that can be done to figure out what elements could possibly improve that. That's something that I also asked the county if they would be open to the city doing an evaluation and coming up with things. They more or less were saying you can do your evaluation, but, obviously any actual improvement would still have to go through them and be approved by them, and/or, the city would be having to fund anything. But, that's something else that can be looked into while not actually directly changing a speed limit.
okay. Well, yeah, I think let's maybe look into those ideas then and see, like you said, it's still the county that would have to make those changes, so we'd still have to get them to do it, but,
Or allow us to,
Yeah, well,
if
right,
the city's gonna
right.
fund it, but.
right. But I like your idea
I-
about, let's just put the speed sign out there and get permission to do that, and then we can see, if we were to do a study, what the results would probably be,
At least get an
and
idea.
get an idea that if we were to do it, would we not get the results we want? Steve maybe is right. A lot of people don't really hit the gas there too crazy because they know they're coming into that curve, right? So, even if we could bring it down to 45 there instead of 55, that might help, so.
Yeah, I've hit that 30-mile-an-hour speed sign going south, and I've had cars fly by me and flip me off because I'm driving 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, right.
It's
That road does feel like you should be going faster than you are.
in the last 6 years, people's driving habits have gotten, and I'm sure, George, you've seen this on the highways. People in the last, since 2019, people have driven like they're nuts, and it's gotten worse and worse every year.
I think it's getting a little bit better this year, but they're doing a lot more enforcement.
Yeah, and they're doing more enforcement, but they still drive like they're crazy. And it's, unfortunately, I hate to say it, is during COVID, when nobody was driving on the roads, people were driving 100 miles an hour, and they were advised not to pull people over.
So this sort of brings up another question I had for you, Travis. Right now, how big of a focus do we have on speeding? Because I had a very long phone call from a resident who is concerned that we may not be doing enough speed checks. And their thought was that instead of us doing the signs, we should have spent the money on officers focusing on speed checks instead, because a speed can't write a sign, an officer, or a sign can't write a ticket, an officer can. Do we spend a lot of time on that, or is there any wiggle room on, I know you do a lot of, you know, checks for insurance and all that stuff. Is there a focus that you guys have, like 60% speeding or anything like that, that?
The focus would be traffic enforcement, traffic law enforcement, and that's dependent on the other factors of that day. You know, like, if you think about a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, up until 4 o'clock, we have one officer driving around, and sometimes that officer's backed up on calls and has them pending for the next person. So on those certain instances, there's nobody doing traffic enforcement, right? So I mean, it's kind of playing the nutshell game. Some days they don't have anything going on, and they are. But as far as speed specifically, I mean, that's one of their, I mean, they all are running radar. I don't know what percentages it would be. I mean, we can pull it up on what traffic stops are. We can get that numbers, but as far as what they're actually patrolling, I don't know as far as percentages,
Okay.
what they're focused on and what they're not.
So it's discretionary, basically? Okay.
Yeah. I know that most of the speed stops that I read, you know, just on their comments, aren't excessive speeds, you know, like 39, 40 on Heritage, and most of those don't warrant a citation in the cases that they're coming across.
Okay.
Kim, did you have another question, or?
I just want to share with you, being that I haven't lived here very long, one of the very first things I noticed about Isani, at least driving through town here, is you have to drive. I mean, there's always somebody sitting out here almost all the time when I drive on here. So I guess I took it as they do a pretty good job.
Sure. Jay's,
That's good.
Them all the time.
yeah,
But I tell people when you come to visit me, when you come through town,
And that is probably more important of an enforcement effort than actually writing you a ticket for going 9 miles over, is having the image and the perception of enforcement. Not saying they're not, but I'm just saying if you know that you're gonna drive in a certain area and have that reputation, don't drive through the city of Isani, because I mean, that's the best that we can do versus trying to pick out the 1 or 2 people.
So you said for like 39 or 40, sometimes there's not tickets written. Is that something that we could be a little harder on? Because me personally, I think if you're going 8 or 9 over, you're kind of, 5, I don't know.
And
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
saying,
It just seems like belligerent.
not always, but so some cases they do, and it depends on that interaction
Okay.
and the driver's behavior. I mean, the role of law enforcement is to change behavior.
Right,
That's it. The role of law enforcement is not to write a ticket.
right.
Now, in your case, somebody's going 35, they might need a ticket to change their behavior. Somebody might be going 42, and they may not need a ticket to change their behavior, because the end result is changing that behavior with whatever tools and discretionary pieces of the puzzle that you have.
Okay.
Now, do we always know if that works? No, but I mean, that is the whole role in law enforcement, is changing behavior versus the actual writing of a monetary citation on every, because if you're going 37, you get a ticket. You know, that doesn't change the behavior. That's not our focus or focus.
It can, though.
It can,
Yeah.
but you might have even more of a change of behavior by doing something different. So,
Sure.
who knows?
Yep, okay.
Jason, if you want to come on up, we can just state your name and address for the record there, if you could.
Name's Jason Phillips, live at 808 Cedar Street Southwest. I'm here this afternoon, evening, because I am the post originator for those social media posts, and it began as thanking our first responders, and then what happened was people that live along that stretch, neighbors and whatnot, began to reach out on social media and also in private, by private means. And so I'm here just to see and represent those people in some way because I was asked to. And what I've gathered is that I think we all agree the only thing that's going to stop very dangerous accidents or preventing drunk driving in some way there, because it seems to be, in the mix very often. And I think everyone understands there's a lot of red tape on this, and something may not get done, and we know, that's okay, we accept that. But what we are seeing and what the people specifically along that stretch who are fenced in right up to the road are saying is, when police aren't around, it's used as a drag strip very often, and I've lived here for almost, I think, 15 years now. And so I would also say what Luke was saying, echo that, where as before this made sense because there was a lower population demographic down on that side. 2022 or 2020 to 2022 really saw an explosion there. And it's primarily young families with children. And so, you know, this idea of when was the last time it's been done, I don't know, but I did step up to that corner the day following that accident. It was actually because I heard a crotch rocket type bike down cycling 5 gears. And I'm like, man, I wonder how fast people are actually driving on average. So I went out and looked, and I think people are generally driving about 30 to 45 there. And even if we did a study and it were reduced, 10, 15 miles per hour going both ways and smashing into each other, that is a massive difference in the casualty rate at the very least. But, you know, because this is about speed, I just want to say, I did the math. I went and looked it up to my best ability on, you know, that type of bike down cycling, and that's 100 to 120 miles an hour. I mean, that's really, really fast. And so the way that that's set up now, they're hitting that, and young people or old people, who knows, when no one's around, that's really fast. And I'm a big fan of kicking the can down the road. In this case, could we kick that can down the road to that curb? You know what I'm saying? So I believe I fulfilled my duty as a citizen today.
Yeah.
Can I also just say one thing? Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy did reach out in private, and I feel represented today by everyone. So
Happy to hear that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming in. I wish more people would come in and talk to us about this stuff.
No, that's for
So,
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really think we need to look into, there's gotta be some sort of loophole or something that we can do to lower that. I believe that the county would be, in on that too, so whether they gotta tell MinDOT to stick it or somebody's got to. At that point, I mean, you're still in the city limits. You're in a city populous area. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It seems every city I drive through, as soon as you hit city
30.
limits, it doesn't matter what city, it seems like boom.
So I don't believe that we can't change
Speed
it.
limit is way down, either 45 or 30. And I just don't, I'd still like to see the legal writing
I mean, look at
to
Dalbo.
get this clarified a little bit.
Look at
better.
Dalbo, that's 55 around it, and then you come through town and you have to, what is it, 35 or whatever? You have to slow down so much, and you can't tell me they actually did a traffic study to get that lower. They didn't. There has to be something there, and that's a county road too, so.
That's the state highway.
Oh, it's 47? Oh, yeah, it is.
State
Oh,
highway.
even better.
Yeah, no, and, I mean, I think that we should definitely put that speed sign out there, see what people are driving, and then we would know if we were to push for some kind of a study, I mean, which sounds like we have to get permission to do that, but maybe we can kind of, you know, start with that, of course, and you're right, Jason, I mean, the difference between, I mean, even, well, Travis, you've done EVOC training and stuff, when you're driving you know, you're driving and they put you through the training when you're gonna go code and you're gonna drive, you know, lights and sirens and stuff. Well, you'd be amazed when you're going, you know, 30 miles an hour versus 25 miles an hour, the difference that makes on how you're able to maneuver. I mean, and that's just 5 miles an hour. So yeah, I mean, if you could get it 10, 15 lower, I mean, that is a huge deal for sure. So, but
But then if we do end up lowering it, we gotta enforce it too, so people know.
Well,
and
right,
people
yeah.
become aware of it.
yeah, no, it's always two parts to that puzzle. But one other question I had for you, and I think we've talked about this, Jason. I'm almost positive this question came up. So it has that sign that says end 30 mile an hour speed limit. And we've asked before, I think, can they take that down? But I don't think they can, because anytime that there's a change, they have to mark it, right?
Correct, yeah, so like we'd talked, instead of having it say 55, you know, now you can go 55, they agreed to only put N 30 to kind of not have that giant sign telling somebody to speed up. Whether or not it's the exact same end result, I don't know. It just, you know, at the time, it seemed like the lesser motivation to get people driving fast, but, yeah, I think we'll have to ask the county if we can put our sign up out on the road there and collect some data on the speeds there. But, I mean, that sounds like a great first step, because if it is, you know, the majority of local residents are driving like it's 30, you know, then we'd probably have a better idea of what we'd be getting into if we did proceed with, you know, trying to go the current legal route.
I think that's a great plan.
Okay. But yeah, I think kind of in addition to that, we should look at maybe some of those traffic calming ideas as well and kind of see what, you know, what we might be able to come up with there and what the cost would look like, so.
How good is the line painting on Whiskey? Has any, I guess I haven't really looked specifically at that. Is it needing to be repaired or redone? Because I mean, if it's hopefully needing redone in the next year or two, we could do like what we were talking about on Dogwood, narrowing with the paint,
Narrow the lines a little bit, yeah.
but I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, those are two very specific things that are on that traffic calming. That's why it came up when we talked about Dogwood. It's, you know, if you can make the lane 1 foot narrower, because there's legal, you know, widths that they need to be, but you go with that narrowest width and you go with a 6 foot inch wide white line, it'll visually feel tighter, you know? So that's one of the other traffic calming elements, that you may not change the speed limit sign, but you get the driver to feel like they should slow down.
Okay, so just the sidewalk piece of this real quick, I've got a bunch of stuff on here, but, so that, I know, you know, in the past, I think there's 2 properties basically, right, that are still kind of in the way there. So, if anybody doesn't know them, and you basically have a sidewalk coming from South Passage down, and then there's about 5 lots that it skips over and then starts up again where it's supposed to be connected, but.
One of them's for sale right now.
What is one of the ones that, okay,
It's not one that's, it's
That
not
one's
somebody, that's
causing
not,
problems.
it's right across the street from the other gentleman.
Yeah, but the new owner might not want that sidewalk to go through.
and I know previous mayors have had conversations with those owners of those properties, and I think last time we talked about, we were gonna maybe send them a letter just to see if maybe they were, and I don't know if we ever got any response or no, so.
Mayor and Council, I did send letters that we were interested in re-engaging in the conversation of possibly having sidewalk access, and I did not hear from anyone.
Maybe this is a bit of a ask, Jimmy, but during your door knocking, would you mind stopping there and seeing? I mean, I don't know how else we're gonna, I mean, if we don't wanna be aggressive and try and take it, but we gotta do something about it. I don't know if we can legally offer him money for that little piece, or
Well,
how.
I think previous conversations did not go well, and when
Maybe he didn't like the
went, that's
previous-
why I think we decided to go with the letter in this time, was
Okay.
because we thought maybe it was a different approach that would be a little less forceful than showing up at their house, because I don't think it was a fruitful conversation.
Okay,
So,
well, that could be it, you
yeah,
know,
so-
it could have been the previous people that talked, I mean,
Well,
it-
I mean,
maybe they didn't like the previous mayor, so
Yeah,
it's
I don't
not
know.
far-fetched to believe.
well, let me think about that.
Yeah, well, no problem. Can we offer money to buy a slice of that to put in it?
We did, and which is pretty unique of a situation, but because of the strong desire for safety to have this sidewalk here, we did offer for purchasing the piece of land that it would be on, as well as putting up a fence, and that still was not desirable from the homeowner.
Yeah,
Someone
so it's
rubbed him the
just-
wrong way, that stinks.
Yeah,
It's
so I just think
personal.
it's,
That goes back
yeah,
more than
Yeah.
6 years ago.
Is that the same property that possibly has a garage or a shed? I think it was a garage.
That was
I think.
overhanging?
Yeah, that was overhanging.
Yeah, I don't know, I remember we discussed something, I can't remember if that was his or not. I think that was, so it was like maybe a little leverage, but
Right.
Did
like
we,
I said, I don't think anybody up here wants to be that person.
well,
yeah, I was just, the eminent
Yeah.
domain, I just did not,
And even to try to strong arm tactic.
yeah.
It was offered to purchase the property, it was offered to give them a privacy fence. Then who's gonna maintain the fence? Who's gonna clean the garbage up when people throw garbage in my yard? It just went on and on.
Yeah.
You have to know the person.
right,
And it isn't just the previous mayor, it goes back further than that. And that is where it left a bad taste.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, those, I mean, I don't know how, what else you could offer to get that done? I mean, he just doesn't, he's not gonna do it, so,
Nope, he already flat out said,
yeah,
my attorney advised me there's nothing you can do.
Yeah,
Well,
well-
we all know there's different, but
yeah.
there again, I don't wanna be that person.
So I know one thing, this is kind of the last point I'll make on this, is that we had talked about, can we bring the sidewalk up to the side of the county road and on the side of Whiskey and the shoulder, and then come back down from that spot, you know, once we get past those houses that are an issue. So maybe you can touch on that a little bit. I feel like there was something with the stormwater runoff and how that would kind of impact that and
The
that.
slope off
Yeah,
the road.
right, right.
Well, and we brought it to the county, to find out what their take would be if we put it up against the edge of the road, and they said no. And it also was aggravating the, like, embankment slope, how steep it would be to tie back in by adding that along the side without impacting the ditch, basically bottom. And they were basically saying that would get it too steep and modify that ditch bottom. So for all those reasons, they were opposed to having us put our walk along the edge. I did, in this last email, just kind of verify that if we went the other way, that they're still okay with us putting it in the walk, because they still technically have jurisdiction over the whole darn right-of-way. And they said, yeah, if we went with going along the backside of the ditch and getting easements, and they're all for getting us, you know, putting in the walk and completing that, but, yeah, not impacting their side of the, or, you know, being against the road and impacting the ditch, you know, width and depth.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the speed, I guess, and the sidewalk one is probably not something we're gonna figure out tonight, I don't think.
No.
So,
If anybody's got any creative ideas, if any neighbors know the guy, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. But I would remind everyone too, I mean, and that's one question I was gonna ask you, Matt, on the speed limit signs. Have we got most of those out now? Because we did change, any road that we were able to change the speed limit down from 30 to 25 is what we had just recently did about a month and a half ago. So I don't know if we've gotten all of the signs out yet or not, but
We don't have any signs out right now. We got the signs at the shop. We have not had time to put any
haven't
signs
had time to put them out yet? Okay, all right. But yeah, those will be going out here very soon, so.
And I was gonna ask city staff if we can make sure to make at least 2 posts on Facebook about that, so people maybe know. And I wanted to use the notification text app as well to text people to let them know, because I had a very upset resident call me, because he seems like we did all this under closed doors, which is not the case, but I think we need more outreach to our residents. So use the text app and Facebook.
When we put the signs up, Councilman Merrill, or that we pass the ordinance, because
Both. I mean, I think we could make one tonight and say, hey, this, you might see this in your neighborhood, you know, and then I think people like it, but I guess a lot of people don't know about it, and I want to make sure that we don't seem like we're closed off, so. Unless anybody's opposed to that.
No, I think it's. a
No, I
good
think it's,
idea.
yeah, no, I mean, you know, we,
Do you know how many users we have for that text notification system? Just roughly?
I'd have to look. Last time I sent out a notification, there was 34.
Oh, okay.
More people need to join.
Oh, I agree, and that's what I want to push that too, because this, I told the same resident to join the
well,
text.
and that's, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
new, brand-new thing that we
Brand
started
new,
6
yep.
months ago, maybe something like that, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
it's just gonna take, but I mean, that,
Because then we could say if there's something big like that in a council meeting, like, hey, we're looking at changing the speed limit, we can text people and tell them, hey, look for this in the next city council meeting. You know, we post this stuff on the Facebook, but people don't really see it unless they think it's pertinent, you know? and There's,
One thing I will add is I don't have a category created, because it's for alerts and notifications, meant more for
Emergencies,
emergency
yeah.
purposes. We can use it for non-emergency, we just will end up paying for those, which I do have like streets and projects on there as notices. So we've sent out, the last one I did was the street project that we had coming up, a pavement management project, letting people know on that. But I don't actually have a group created for getting notices for like city ordinance changes.
okay.
Is that something that you want created?
Or just city,
they would have to opt into it, right? I mean,
They have to opt into it, but
Like
I don't have
city
that as a
news or-
category. I have I have,
added
I
as
think,
a-
7 categories, but that is not one of them.
City business or something like that?
Because I think that's a little challenging for staff to know what to make sure that council wants sent out
Yeah.
versus, I could
Ordinance
send out
changes, I
things
think.
every
I
day.
think ordinance changes are a reasonable thing maybe to have as a category, don't you?
Yeah, I think so too, because I had another complaint about an ordinance we did, which we're gonna talk about later with the food trucks, and if he said if he would've known, he would've been here directing our conversation a little bit more. So I think there's just a lot more public outreach we can do. I mean, maybe at the beginning of every city council meeting, we can mention that text app, say the number, and then they can subscribe while they're sitting here, while they're listening. I mean, we have this platform, we might as well use it.
But it's on the residents to get more
Oh,
involved too.
it definitely is.
It's not like we're hiding.
Oh, we're not
here.
hiding
We have a
anything.
building and online, YouTube, Facebook. It's out there. They just gotta follow it more.
Yeah. All right, one more point on this is, one other thing that we did do too, is we put all those signs at just about every entrance into the city that says, drive like your children live here. So, you know, I don't know, those aren't the brightest signs that I've ever seen. I mean, I wish they would stand out a little bit more, but
I was hoping it would just say kids.
kids would have
It's less
been
reading.
shorter. Yeah, right, yeah.
But
So, well, maybe when those
people
ones.
do
w-
see them. I think when you're coming in on 5
Yeah.
by the school, I think you see that one more because you're going slower.
And we did make a school zone over on Main Street there as well, where the Lutheran church is, so that's a little slower during those hours too. So definitely an issue that we want to keep working on and keep chipping away on, but I think we've got at least a plan of, you know, we're looking into traffic calming and, you know, what a speed study would actually look like if we had to do that. So we'll start with that, and we'll keep chipping away on other areas here. So, I'm gonna move on to E4, timeline for repairs to residents' property from a street construction discussion. And so I'll kind of just preface this a little bit with, I had a resident, actually Leroy, thanks for coming. Leroy actually had asked me, and he's here tonight, about, on Main Street, when we had a construction project over there, we had sod that was laid down and didn't take, and they put it down, and Leroy maybe would want to elaborate on this a little bit too, but it didn't take, they had, you know, hard black dirt underneath it, and then it died, and they came back and put more sod down again, where they probably really needed to bring in black dirt and re-sod it, and it died again, of course, and so, I would guess that Leroy's probably watering it pretty well, I would think, or taking care of it and stuff, so, just knowing the kind of guy he is. But, you know, now that window is closed for that project, and that project's been closed out, and I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but it's 2 times basically that they'll go back for that given project, right? Or Jason, maybe you would have a better answer on that, but.
Yeah, so our specs on any of our projects are the contractor's responsible to get the grass to root and maintain it for 30 days. And that is it. And so, I guess I even remember back on this one, it didn't root and it had died. And so we sent them back. They, I believe they added a little bit of topsoil, but maybe, you know, not very much, I don't know. But redid the sod, watered it significantly for that 30 days. We did our, you know, has it rooted test where you grab it and see if you can lift it up, and, you know, spot checks, you can't check every square inch, but pass that test, and that's pretty much as our specifications require contractors to maintain grass. And that's pretty much it.
So who does that test? You or the
Our
contractor?
inspector, yeah,
The inspector?
our city's, yeah.
Okay.
Representative. And that's about it, you know. On Sixth Ave, we actually had to have them go back at least 3 times because they wouldn't get it to take. They either didn't water it, they didn't, you know, prep it right, whatever. We had to make them come back a few times to replace dead grass because it was not rooting. But in this case, they had watered this Main Street project really heavily after the first round of things that died, and everything we checked had passed, and from there it's you know, passed over to the resident. You know, in this specific case, if there was something weird going on where it took a year for it to die off, that just unfortunately just isn't what our we can hold the contractor to, or we'd be paying an unbelievable amount of money per square yard of sod if we're telling the contractor that they gotta maintain that grass for a year or two. You know, that's just not realistic.
Is that 30-day thing pretty standard?
Yeah, it's pretty much the industry standard, yeah.
Yeah, come on up, Leroy. If you can just state your name and address for the record here.
Leroy Johnson, live at 510 Main Street West. Yes, I'm one of the property owners that's having a problem with this. And what the way I feel about this, yes, what we're saying is that they did lay sod, and they did water it one time, and then later that failed. They did resod and water it, but here's the point. I could lay sod on this floor and water it and keep it watered, and it will stay green. But if you want to see if it's rooted, you've got to take it. I'll guarantee you, you can lift that strip of sod up that they've laid, and it is not rooted. But as long as you water it, yeah, the water truck came by. He sat there, and he sprayed water on it faithfully. But you've got to have a base you've got to have some subsoil under here for things to grow. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to determine that. And that's what's failed here. And so as a result of that, property owners along Main Street and other property owners in this town take pride in their lawns. And you try to do the best you can. And you add seed to your lawns, and you fertilize your lawns, and so on and so forth. But here we've got a strip. You can use mine as a good example. From the sidewalk, there's a two strip wide. I don't know what sod is, probably 30 inches or whatever sod is. There's two strips. You can go out there right now, and I can pick up piece after piece, slab after slab, and there is absolutely no growth there. Now, what's happened there is when they took and putting in the new street and preparing for the new sidewalk, in my case, they hit my irrigation system. So what happened there is that they did replace the heads that they damaged. They did replace the line that they broke. But when they backfilled it with the submaterial that was there, and it was not black dirt. So then they come in with an overlay of dirt that maybe was an inch thick, if that. Well, that's not sufficient in order to establish a new growth. So as a result, once they quit watering, and we continued to water when you irrigate your lawns, but it's still, the minute you quit that, it's going to run out of water. It's going to die because it is not rooted. So here we are. If you drive by it, if you drive out, you're welcome to come out and look. There's that section, and the same thing is true between 5th and 4th, going up the hill. That's all weeds in there. There's no grass in there whatsoever. It's just plain weeds. So what do we do with this? That's the reason I'm really here. Is there anything that can be done, or what is going to be done with that particular strip? It's not only 510, it's 5.8, it's 600, it's all the way along Main Street, where that is along the city property as well, the part that you've got in the park there. If you look at that, it is not good grass or good growth there. So I think, in my case, that should be removed out of there. Put in adequate submaterial, good dirt, black dirt that things will grow on, and then it wouldn't have to be resodded. It could be reseeded. And if we reseed it, and I think, and take care of it, it would come back, and we would establish a nice piece of grass there between the sidewalk and our properties. So, and I'd be willing to work with the city or whoever to correct this situation, because it is ugly the way it is right now. And I particularly try to take pride in my lawn and try to keep it looking nice, and that there's no way, not with that ugly site that we have there. So that's my reason for being up here.
Jason, I have a couple quick questions for you. Do you know who the inspector was that signed off on that? Because I have personally seen maybe not in this city, but in other cities, inspectors that don't even get out of their car and sign off on stuff. So I want to make sure that whoever signed off on this actually did it. And second, is there any way that we can contact that contractor? I know they're probably not going to like it, but if we tell them there's multiple properties, including a city property that has unrooted sod, I would think they might want to take care of it, or they might not get another contract from the city. Is that something that we could do, send them a letter and see if they would do something about it?
I mean, I guess we can send a letter, but I would say there's pretty much zero chance they'll do anything. Their warranty expired 2 years ago on it. They passed, the grass and they
That's
wouldn't.
something we could try. I mean,
Well,
just to see, because if there's a
I
city
can
property on it, I
contact
think you have a lot more leverage if, say, a city property isn't properly rooted too. I mean,
Well, yeah, otherwise, back to your original question, it was one of my staff, that was the inspector.
Okay.
They're the ones that found all the spots that were dead the first time doing the same test.
okay.
And they're the ones doing the follow-up test, that if they found them all the first time, I don't know why they would
Sure.
not.
I didn't know if it
check
was
again.
min-spec, that's why I asked.
No, that's,
Okay.
doesn't make, it's part of just any of our projects that we cover is the
Okay.
inspection of it. Yeah, I mean, aside from that, it's just so well past any warranty. I don't see how the contractor would even get involved unless we're paying them again.
So I have a question for you. So in the future, I mean, if we look at this, I mean, can we negotiate in those contracts that we want you to bring in black dirt, seed it, not sod it, and to
And
do?
specify
and-
the inches of black dirt, because if you
So-
bring in black dirt and dust it, well,
Right, so actually specifically, this city is the only one I sod in anymore.
Really? Yeah,
It's a requirement that's been here since I've been here.
okay.
So we require sod everywhere. All my other projects in other cities, and it's not all cities, but mine happen to be, we seed everywhere. Now, I believe I have as many or more issues with seed because weeds take faster than the grass, and then I have very, very many people that don't like the weeds. And getting weeds back out of baby grass is worse. You basically are just tilling it back up and starting over. And I'm dealing with that in 7 different towns right now, with weeds growing more than the grass did, and there's always gonna be problems with grass. Now, the topsoil underneath topic, absolutely, we can specify as thick as we want. We usually specify 4 inches when we have to fill it in, 6 inches if it's gonna be topsoil, because it basically, when sod comes in, it's got its own, kind of 2 inches there, so in the end, you're supposed to end up with that section.
so, just a quick question. Was that specified in this contract? Is that something we could go measure and say, hey, you didn't meet this?
So there's when you're doing a reconstruction and they're scraping off like the outer limits of the grass, it's pretty much standard procedure is you're not going back and cutting down 6 inches. What was there is usually left in place. It's just where you're having to fill like the gap that's behind the back of curb where it's like a foot deep. That's the specific spot that we'd usually end up having new topsoil getting placed. Now on that back portion, that first time we went through, it was found to be, just whatever material was out there, not topsoil, after we checked in these certain spots. Other areas, did have enough topsoil, so it's a little tough to be, uniformly treating everything. But in this case, it was found that it didn't really have anything to grow in, so they took it off. It sounds like maybe they only added an inch or 2 on that back portion that hadn't been excavated, and
So in that case, they might have broken the contract and not fulfilled what we paid them to do.
It's hard to go back 2 years later, though. and
Oh,
correct-
yeah, but it's
correct it.
still,
they wouldn't, I mean, we didn't have to pay for the topsoil either, so there's nothing to,
but it's in the bids that they give us. So basically, they're skimping on a product and taking more money and.
no, they're not taking more money. We only pay for what they do. That's all of our projects. So whatever tons they brought in of topsoil on the overall project is the tons we paid for.
Oh, it's not done by a bid?
It,
It's done by a bid, so they account for that. We have standards, and these contractors, I say this all the time, they try and skimp wherever they can to try and make more money off of, that's how
right,
it is.
That's why it's a unit price bid. That's why we only pay for the physical things they install. So they get us a price for how much per ton or per cubic yard. And then we get the tickets they hauled in and we pay for what physically got put in, not
Okay.
you get paid $100,000 to do our topsoil, and then they try not to give us any.
Okay.
It's only what they brought us, so,
So that's different than a lot of construction stuff that we get bids on.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
any of the projects that I'm running are this unit price style, we only pay for what they do. You know, buildings and things are sometimes more on that lump sum, how much is it gonna cost to do the whole thing, and that's it. And, you know, that's where those kind of issues come, but that's why we do pay by the individual unit of what went in, so that we are only paying for what we get. We could choose moving forward on projects, like right now, we're,
Well, here, let's kind of pick this back up again after a little bit here, because we've got a planning meeting that we've got a bunch of folks that are kind of waiting to get started. So we will come to a solution on this, Leroy, and we'll get it figured out here, so.
Motion to go into recess until after planning.
Second.
I have a motion to recess until after planning from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Holmgren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. So just give us 1 minute here. We'll jump into our planning